So today we're going to be going over some proofs. Yay, we all love proofs. I know you're all really excited about this, so don't get too antsy on me. Okay, so we're going to dig into what an algebra proof is, and we're just going to look at an example. The best way to go through these is just to do examples over and over again until we get to our end results, until we feel comfortable with them. So the first proof we're going to look at is first, before we start a proof, we need to figure out what the steps are. The steps in solving an algebra proof, which is different than a geometry proof, is going to be 1, solve the equation. So you just solve the equation algebraically like you normally would. 2, write the justification or the reasoning behind what you're doing. So proofs, you're going to be able to take one step at a time and say what you did from step 1 to step 2. Justify that step. Oh, you divided? Then you're going to write division. You subtracted, you'll write subtraction. So it's just basic order of operations. This is nothing new. The only thing that we're doing is stating our reasoning behind each one. By stating our reasoning, we're going to be able to get into geometry proofs and dig deeper into what we've been doing and learn more about the proofs and how we are able to prove them, which is the whole point of geometry. Alright, so let's look at an example. So we're given -5 equals 3n plus 1. The first thing I need to do is I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. By subtracting 1 from both sides, it cancels out the 1 on the right, and we're going to be left with -6 equals 3n. Oops, getting ahead of myself. Once I'm left with -6 equals 3n, I now need to get rid of the 3. Since it's being multiplied together with the n, I know I can divide 3 by both sides. So as I'm going through this, think to yourself of everything that I've been saying, all the order of operations that I've been saying out loud. So when I divide both sides by 3, cancels out the 3 on the right, and I'm left with -2 equals n. Now, our next step is to create a table. So I just like to draw a line down the right and a line on the top. On the left, we can see that I have written step 1. They give us the equation. Since they gave it to us, I'm going to write given. Simple. There's no other reasoning behind that. Number 2, I want to figure out how I got from step 1 to step 2. So to get from step 1 to step 2, I had to subtract 1. By subtracting 1 is how I got -6 equals 3n. So on the right side, I'm going to write step 2 is because I had to subtract here in the highlighted. So I'll write subtraction, POE. I'll explain what POE means in 1 second. Okay, step 3. Step 3, we want to figure out how we got from -6 equals 3n down to -2 equals n. So what we can see here is that I had to divide both sides by 3. Alright, so I just said what we had to do. Divide. So we're going to write division, divide, POE. By writing division, I'm giving my reasoning, giving my statements. So now you may be wondering, what does POE mean? POE means property of inequality. What that actually means, the definition of that is what you do to one side, you're able to do to the other. So as we're solving these equations, we've been dividing both sides by 3, we've been subtracting 1 to both sides. So adding in that POE means that I divided by both sides. I subtracted by both sides. Just a minor technicality, something that you just need to do. So just remember that. Alright, let's look at another example. So we're still doing the same thing. We're going to justify each step. 1/2 t equals -7. Oops. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. By doing that, I'm going to be canceling out the 2 on the bottom. And I'll be left with t equals negative 14. Sorry, t equals negative 14. So now I'm going to create my table by drawing a line through the right side and over the top. I'm going to circle each step I do on the left so I'm able to line it up with everything on the right. So the first thing that I always write is given, correct. So I'm going to write the given equation because they gave it to me. Now for the second step, what I want to do is figure out what I did to get from 1 to 2. How did I get from step 1 to step 2? Let's think. So it looks like I multiplied both sides by 2. So what I'm going to write is multiply POE, or multiplication, abbreviate however you want to, as long as I am able to see what you mean. So once you have solved the equation on the left, you go over, make the table on the right, and you're able to write out each step that you did and why you did it. So now we're going to be looking at a geometry proof. We're going to be getting into it a little bit. It still is mainly mainly algebraic, nothing too difficult here. I know you guys can do this. So we have our line segment KLM, where KL equals x plus 3, LM equals 2x minus 1, and KM equals 5x minus 4. So for this one, what we're going to do is we need to write out the right side of the column. So we're going to have to write out the reasons. So this is what a proof, when I say we need to write a 2-column proof, this is what I'm looking for. A T-table with on the left we have statements and on the right we have reasons. By doing this, you're setting it up properly and you're going to be able to keep track of your proof and what you're doing throughout each step clearly. So it's not all over the place with numbers and letters and I'm lost, you're lost. We don't want any of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly write out the left side of everything this is what has already been given to us. So as it's being written out, I want you just to be thinking about what's being written, how it's being written, what steps are being done, and how everything's being given, and get into the final product. Because we're going to go through and we're going to write the right side out. So there's going to be 6 steps. And pause this at any time so you can write this down and keep track of your notes. So on the left, our first thing says KM equals KL plus LM. Alright, so we're not able to write given because we're not given an equation here. All we've been given is this drawing. Based on this drawing, how can we say that KM equals KL plus LM? Alright, so let's look. So we have KM is the whole segment. Alright, so we have a whole. KL is our first part, and LM is our second part. Does this sound like something familiar as I'm saying this out loud? So we have our whole equals one part plus another part. This should sound like something we've been working on before. This should sound like the segment addition postulate. The segment addition postulate is the part plus part equals whole. I know we haven't stressed the term very much, but now is the time that we need to get used to saying these geometric terms and vocabulary, such as segment addition postulate, instead of part plus part equals whole. Alright, so now it's just simple algebra. How do we get from variables to plugging in numbers, or what was given to us in the drawing? Oh, what is plugging in? What's a math term for plugging something in? Substitution. So what we did in step 2, to get from step 1 to step 2, we just substituted. Simple as that. So I'm just going to write substitution for step 2. So now let's look at step 3. How did we add together x plus 2x? we're combining like terms. That's all we're doing. We're just combining the terms on the right side. When you combine like terms, so we've combined our boxes and what I've circled, we can say that we're just simplifying. So all we're doing is simplifying our equation based on what we have written down. So let's look at how we got from step 3 to step 4. Let's think. So the thing that is changing is that I'm moving 3x over to the left. How do I do that? I have to subtract 3x from both sides. So under step 4, I'm going to write subtraction POE. Very simple. This is what we've been doing all in algebra. This is what you guys learned last year. So we're just continuing on with what we're doing and applying our knowledge. From step 4 to step 5, we're moving the negative 4 to the right. We do that by adding 4. By adding 4, we can write addition POE. Step 6, what did we do? It looks like we had to move the negative 2 over by division, correct? So we can say we did division POE. And then we're left with our end result of x equals 2, and we don't have to do anything else because we have gotten all the way through writing a reason for each step. So when you try your homework tonight, I want you to see what you do, what happens, how it goes, and bring your questions tomorrow.